I was talking to Craig Lewis from
Hmm.
Flyers this morning,
Yeah.
and we were having a good discussion about prohibition, the OG prohibition,
Yeah.
and how coming out of that, the singular form factor that was allowed was like a 3% beer.
Yeah.
And after that is how we continue to open up the alcohol industry into spirits. And we're still working on it every day. So, like, lobbying continues forever. But I'm curious as what to that, how that need is reflected into like also the thought about kind of incrementalism
Yeah.
after that initial win. And I feel that a lot of tension that's holding us up, especially on the hemp side of the industry right now, is we want it all.
Yeah.
We need it all. Do you actually need it all right now, or can we like take some of it and build into it? And I think that's where it gets really hard, is just because then you're playing this massive game of poker of we need what we can get.
Yeah.
And the big question is what can we get, right?
I was really surprised to see in the Griffith Bill that there was any proposed regulations around inhalables. I had been assuming that the regulatory pathway towards hemp derived products would not include any inhalables and that they would be
Hmm.
prohibited except into regulated. So I think it's an example of what you're talking about, Ben. The Griffith Bill actually lays a framework for most form factors that I
Mm-hmm.
think of, as opposed to taking a more specific only edibles or non-inhalables or something like that, beverages.
I happened to see Jeremy Burke commented on somebody's LinkedIn post about the Volstead Act. And
Mm.
it was one of those things that I like saw casually scrolling and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And the more I looked into it, I always love to try to figure out what case studies can we look at. We don't have a ton because we're a new industry. If you go back to the Volstead Act, 1919 to 1933 was the prohibition. 1933, the prohibition was repealed. And then for 2 to 3 years, you had a state by state regulatory framework without federal policy. And then it wasn't until 1935 that we had the Federal Alcohol Administration Act that started to codify a federal framework for everything from labels, advertising, trade practices. And I think the similarities in a post-prohibition era of beer and alcohol is very similar to what we're going through in the hemp industry. I know history doesn't necessarily always repeat, but it certainly takes a similar shape. And I think we're starting to get to a place where, one, this is a national conversation, which I think before the CR probably wasn't as much of a national conversation in this regard in Congress. And then two, I think we're finally starting to see federal regulatory frameworks that are a good point of discussion to start actually putting action behind.